On today's episode of The Lucid Lens, you may have heard this Kona Blue program that got scrapped and declassified, a prospective special access program. But what if I told you they might have actually been successful in spinning up a successor to AAWSAP?
The period that Colm is describing is when Jim and Colm and some of their colleagues were trying to find a new home for a version of AAWSAP. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But has some interesting doors that have not been even mentioned. One, why was this program started? Two, why was this program ended? And we've raised this partially in Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Did it end?
It seems like apparently, even though Kona Blue died, AAWSAP might in fact live on. I'm going to connect some dots from AAWSAP to AATIP to a yet unnamed program thanks to Dr. James Lacatski, who ran AAWSAP. Also, we got clarification from Dr. John McDowell that the Nazca mummies are in fact real specimen and some are clearly not human. And finally, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense and Intelligence Christopher Mellon shares an exchange he had with a senior government official about the progress they are making getting into the crash retrieval program, and that they learned, who the Air Force Gatekeeper is. Let's go.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
Intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
Greetings, beautiful people, you marvelous citizens of the planet Earth, and welcome to the Lucid Lens. I'm just some dude who became enamored with the UFO topic recently. It's got me reading about quantum physics and consciousness and advanced propulsion and trying to figure out how our political structure actually works in the United States. A year ago, I really wasn't interested in any of those things, but now I'm becoming obsessed with piecing it all together. And I hope you'll join me on this journey. If you enjoy what you're hearing, consider subscribing. Give a like, dislike, but more importantly, leave a comment and let me know where you are in this discussion. I want to know what your theories are. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. Okay, we've got a lot to get into today, and I thought about chopping this video up into a couple of sections, but I said, screw it, you're getting the whole thing. All right, this first story, Dr. John McDowell, who's one of the American scientists who went down to Peru, he clarifies his team's position with regards to their initial findings of the Nazca mummies. Let's take a listen.
The specimens that we've examined, some people are calling them bodies, mummies. I'm going to call them specimens. Specimens are real. There are humanoid characteristics, anthropologic findings, osteology, bone analysis, teeth analysis that say that these are human or human-like, the ones that I've evaluated. There are some that are clearly not human, just let me put it that way. But with everything in science, we investigate it. We try to determine what we're finding in the physical world, and we develop a hypothesis to explain what the physical findings are. And we're certainly at the earliest stages of investigation, and we hope that we're invited to continue.
So that's courtesy of the Magical Mystery Tour. I guess the Beatles are touring again. I don't know. Anyway, so that's great that he actually clarified, what their initial position was. And I mean, I kind of read between the lines with their initial statement at the conference. I still saw a lot of people saying they didn't say that they were real. I get it. You don't want to put words into somebody's mouth, especially not with a topic like this. You want to be careful. You don't want to make assumptions. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. But you can read between the lines and get a read on people, right? And it was pretty obvious to me, at least, that they thought that what they were looking at were real and worthy of additional study and scrutiny, which is why they said that. But it's great that they're saying, yes, these are real specimen. The ones that we looked at are humanoid, but there are other ones that we're looking at, and they are definitely not human. I mean, I still get chills when I hear people say stuff like that, even like almost a year into this. When I see, Ryan Graves talking about the fact that he still get pilots on the, East Coast and West Coast telling him that they're running into these objects on the daily. And I'm like, it's crazy. Like like, I still can't believe, like, a year ago, I was not even thinking about this stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, man, what a world we live in. Like, it's crazy. So hopefully more to come on that front. I really hope this is encouraging more people. There's got to be a lot of scientists that are like sitting there quietly, like waiting to see what happens and hopefully they're coming, reaching out and trying to get involved, because I feel like it's probably pretty safe to at this point. So yeah, we'll have to keep a close eye on that and see what comes next. Story number 2. Christopher Mellon drops a Signal chat of his own. You may have saw the one, I think the Black Vault had a FOIA, and it was a conversation between David Grusch and Sean Kirkpatrick. And I wasn't going to get into that because it really wasn't too interesting to me. I'm it doesn't surprise me that I'm not even going to bother getting into it. There's some discussion on it already, but if you're interested, go look for it. But I've seen some misunderstanding that these are not emails or text messages, right? This communication was sent through an app called Signal, which is a private messaging app widely used by government officials because it's encrypted end to end. And it's safe to use for discussion that you might not want someone to get a hold of. So let's take a quick look at Mellon's Substack and this message that came out. Yeah, he talks about the recent FOIA request, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sitting on a Signal of my own. Let's release this." And this is between him and a senior government official back in 2020. So the government official says, "Blank and I are making huge progress getting into the crash retrieval program. He plans to meet with you at some point." Christopher Mellon gave a thumbs up to that. He then further says, "The blank would be slack-jawed if they found out what we now know." And Christopher Mellon replies, but it's mostly redacted, except for 45 feet, maybe, in verse something. Okay. Then the senior government official says, "Right now we haven't gone that far back." The way he's responding leads me to believe Christopher Mellon is talking about the year 1945. Maybe, are you guys talking about 45 versus more recent or older? I don't know. I'm getting the feeling that it's a date, though. So he says we haven't gone that far back. We're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 50s. We're vacuuming up info as blank gets read in. I wonder who that is. We now know the management structure and security control systems and ownership of the crash retrieval. We also know who recovers landed or crashed UAP under what authority. We also know that a still highly classified memo by a Secretary of the United States Air Force in the 1950s is still in effect to maintain the cover on UAPs. We also know the SES-2, who's the Air Force Gatekeeper. And the name's redacted here, but it was provided to Congress. That's pretty crazy. So they know of specific UAP recoveries, right? They're talking about the one in the 1950s in Kingman, Arizona. They know the management structure, so they know who's overseeing these programs. They know the security control systems, the ownership of the crash retrieval program, global access, CIA potentially. Maybe there's more than one. They know who recovers landed or crashed UAP and under what authorities. And there's a United States Air Force memo from the 50s still in effect to maintain cover on the UAP. And then the SES-2 Air Force Gatekeeper. So I looked into this. This is a Senior Executive Service Level 2. It's a rank within the Senior Executive Service System. Now, these are civilian leadership roles within the federal government, including the DoD. SES-2 positions typically involve high-level management and decision-making, often overseeing significant programs or departments within the Air Force, crucial for ensuring effective operation and administration of the Air Force's non-military functions. So that this would definitely fit the bill for that. So Congress has known all of this for 4 years now, right? This took place in 2020. And linking back again to what Marco Rubio said last year, they've been having whistleblowers coming to them for years before Grusch. So there was likely an ongoing DOJ investigation long before we even heard of David Grusch. And well, I didn't plan on, covering the recent whistleblower, and it seems like I made the right call on that. But they did say something that I think rings true. Remember, disinformation or, there's usually some truth in the middle of it to help you swallow it a little bit better, right? So Congress is sitting, and this is really without dispute, they're sitting on a mountain of evidence right now. They know a lot. And this was, they said this back in, he said, can't imagine what we know now. This was back in 2020. They've had 4 years they've been investigating, and more people have been coming to them. So Congress they know a lot. And they knew a lot 4 years ago, according to this exchange, but they're struggling to figure out how to roll this out to the public. And that is something I can believe. There needs to be some sort of orchestrated plan, whether or not the government, our elected officials can figure out how to do that, or if, the gatekeepers are letting stuff out at a pace they feel comfortable getting it out. But I don't know. It sounds like our elected officials are, in their hands, have a lot of information. And then now without this senior official coming forward publicly, this story likely won't blow up as big as it should. But according to Mellon, he said, I won't comment on the organization this government official worked for, but I can confirm the individual had plausible access and was high ranking, considerably more so than whistleblower Dave Grusch. So if this person came forward, they would blow the lid off of things. I wonder if it's someone someone recognizable. Like if they came out, we were like, oh crap, everyone knows who that is. I don't know, but that's crazy. But again, they need to come forward in front of Congress publicly in a hearing to really make any moves with this. So, but it's still just kind of like more confirmation that Congress is in the know. Like at least, the upper echelon of Congress is in the know right now. All right. With that down, this main topic here, Kona Blue, but I'm going to take a different approach because, by now most of you guys heard about the Prospective Special Access Program, Kona Blue, after the Department of Homeland Security released some 56 pages to AARO last week. And there's numerous videos, going through the documents. But when I started reading, I was immediately reminded of Weaponized episode number 38 with Dr. James Lacatski and Colm Kelleher. And just to remind you, these two men ran the AAWSAP program. Okay, that's undeniable. Look them up. That they ran AAWSAP. In case you forgot, here's one of the major revelations that was dropped on that episode.
Yes.
Okay, so you're telling us, you told us, because you were allowed to tell us, that our government has a UFO in its possession and has been able to access the inside of it, right?
Yes.
Well, that's
Also,
okay.
I tell you,
So yeah, that was pretty huge, and that was last October when this came out. And so backing up, AAWSAP was created by Lacatski here and Senator Harry Reid with the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and they completed their objectives within 2 years. He said, go back and watch this whole video if you haven't seen it yet or need a refresher, because they drop a lot of nuggets I think people missed. So they completed their objectives in 2 years, even though they had funding for 5 years, right? AAWSAP did. And it was a full-blown UFO and paranormal investigation, okay? And he goes into why that is important, why it wasn't just very narrowly focused, because you need to take a holistic look at this to actually get the full picture. Otherwise, you're blind and you're missing parts of it, okay? So that's AAWSAP. AATIP was a specialized small program that was spun out of AAWSAP purely to handle military cases. And this is the part that was run by Lou Elizondo. They didn't have their own separate funding. They were just, I guess, mooching off of whatever they could from the big pot that AAWSAP had, the $22 million or whatever. So at this point in time, this was back in like 2009-ish, they knew that government was in possession of a UFO. And they had the craft in what Lacatski refers to as a congressional facility. And then the AAWSAP program was effectively shut down at the end of 2010 when the funding ran out. Now, here's where things get juicy.
And it involved a lot of negotiation and back and forth between different organizations. One of those organizations that we worked with was DHS, as it says in that book. And those elements within DHS did their own version of due diligence. And that's what's being referenced in that book.
I think what George is getting at is that you guys have already explained that you have gone off, after the people that are guarding these secrets, that you did find that they're storing this stuff somewhere else. I mean, George, is that your point? Is that they've already said?
I think that they believe that those goods exist somewhere hidden in the bowels of defense contractors by the elements of the U.S. government. They think they're real. The period that Colm is describing is when Jim and Colm and some of their colleagues were trying to find a new home for a version of AAWSAP. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so they were trying to find a new home for AAWSAP. Okay? This is Kona Blue they're talking about right now. And we know Kona Blue was denied. But listen to what James Lacatski says next.
But has some interesting doors that have not been even mentioned. One, why was this program started? Two, why was this program ended? And we've raised this partially in Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Did it end?
Did it end? And he says, again, at some point here, read between the lines of what I'm telling you, because he's gone through Dopser with Skinwalkers of the Pentagon in this most recent book. I can't remember the name of it, but I can't remember the name of it. I should have looked it up. Regardless, why was AAWSAP started? Why was it ended? Did it end? I think they were successful. It sounds like some version of AAWSAP lives on. So we know about Kona Blue because it was declassified after it was shut down and sent over to AARO. Lacatski suggesting they were successful in spinning up a successor to AAWSAP elsewhere. And we wouldn't know about it because they succeeded in creating a special access program and it's now buried like the legacy programs are. He's telling us right now, did it actually end? So that's fucking crazy. I don't know if anyone caught this. That is insane. So it sounds like they were successful in creating another special access program, except maybe this one is actually does have congressional oversight. So if you remember, AAWSAP was a full-blown program looking at UFOs and other related phenomena. AATIP was the smaller part, just looking at military cases. This next clip is why the full-blown program is what's needed to truly understand this phenomena.
Of course not. That was part of the program. But I'm saying the door being slammed in our face wasn't because of suspected demonic activities within this at all. In fact, I would say there's evidence that this is something of a nature that, I better not say much more. If full human capabilities were known to us right now, it is not something that we need to fear. And I just don't believe it. Maybe I'm influenced by my Catholic faith. I don't know, but I'm optimistic. I think everything heads toward good.
What do you mean by if full human capabilities were understood?
We nothing don't use any. We'll get into that later at some later point. But our capabilities, as Colm well knows, he's probably an expert in all of these areas, more so than me. Our capabilities have never been fully revealed, and we're still learning. We've got a long way to evolve still.
So you might be wondering, what is he talking about? Why is he talking about human capabilities with regards to the UFO phenomena? Well, I will refer you back to page 18 of the declassified Kona Blue documents. Consciousness Center. expand on remote viewing and remote communication to communicate, retrieve data, and transport across dimensional space-time barrier. Develop remote viewing countermeasures. Study consciousness interactions with and control of technology. So down on page 29, they've also got conduct experiments to determine the baseline parameters for physical transport across dimensional space-time barrier, as opposed to communication and data transfer only. And this, my friends, is the key. Lacatski just spelled it all out right there. I'm going to play one more clip, and I'm going to explain how this all comes together at the end.
Translate, George.
All right, let's try another tack. How do we know it's a craft and not a doorstop? We accessed it. It has no engine. It has no wings. No fuel. It doesn't. We don't know that it travels. Do we know it's a craft, or it's just a rock?
George, you're going into the further discussion that occurred that day.
All right.
We can't go there. But let me tell you, we're going to try to cover that in the future.
Okay. So, craft has no engine, no wings, no fuel. And this is why I think Lacatski says we shouldn't fear this stuff, because we're capable of it as well. You know, remote viewing is one thing, and presumably works thanks to, you know, quantum entanglement, and all points in space and time are connected. But what if the physical composition of these craft allows you to do physically what remote viewing allows you to do mentally? In other words, what if at least some of these craft are completely powered by consciousness? So they know this object is a craft. And he mentions at some point, read between the lines. And when I do that, it sounds like, you know, the same way people can remote view or trigger an out-of-body experience, these craft act as a conduit for our consciousness to physically travel. And this is much different than, you know, Bob Lazar's sport model, which actually had an engine and fuel components, which leads us full circle. It's becoming more and more clear that there are multiple types of NHI visiting us. And this just explains the wide range of sightings and experiences that people have. It explains all the different types of craft. I mean, even in this video they go into, he talks about how he loves that, you know, there's so many different types, and compared to like SUVs on Earth where they all start to look the same. If they don't have a badge on them, you can't even tell them apart. It seems like there's like a natural progression to advancement, right? Some, as David Grusch had said, may not be much more advanced than us, but they still have access to these different types of exotic propulsion and still a much, you know, better understanding of whether it's, you know, gravity or just, you know, relative physics. Just are, you know, we're missing something. We're missing a piece of the puzzle, right? And there could be multiple ways to achieve the effect that we're seeing. So, but it's still, you know, so there might be a little bit more advanced, but still have access to different types of exotic propulsion. While as you move up that totem pole and progress further, others are seemingly can tap into space-time itself and travel with little more than their own consciousness. And beyond that still, the next natural progression could, you know, be beyond physical, and that could explain, you know, the manifestation of these orbs and, you know, pure energy, right? And that kind of explains the natural progression as we shed these clunky machines, and, you know, that could be a billion years later, you just become pure consciousness. Who knows? I mean, it's certainly starting to sound like that. So what do you guys think? Is conscious travel possible? Could this have something to do with, you know, some craft? I can't remember where I read this, you know, being described as having like a skin-like exterior. Are the craft themselves actually conscious? And are they some sort of conduit that connects to other consciousness? And is that why, often sightings can have different, descriptions between multiple observers. I remember at Skinwalker Ranch, I think it was some Defense Department guys. I think there were like a group of 6 or so of them. I'm pretty sure George Knapp told this story. Actually, it may have been on this episode or maybe in something else, where they all saw something and every single one of them described it differently. They saw different shapes, different size things. And it seems like some aspects of this are just pure consciousness, and the way that you interpret it is different based on your consciousness. I mean, Lacatski left some pretty big breadcrumbs here, and it seems like apparently, even though Kona Blue died, AAWSAP might in fact live on in some form. Let me know your thoughts. Do you have any theories about what's going on with the programs or these whistleblowers, or how these craft function? Do you think there's like just multiple ways to do it, right? That's kind of how I'm leaning. So let me know your thoughts, theories, and discussion down in the comments down below. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.